LGBT community. Um, we're going to get into that in just a minute. Welcome to our channel, Help Us Defend. With me is Faye. I'm Jason. And our nonprofit is here to reduce risks for children and vulnerable people online. If you want to help us with our mission, you should come volunteer or you should donate. You should Google us, Help Us Defend, or get on our website, HelpUsDefend.com. So the title of today's live stream, Faye,
Yeah,
LGBT community. Maps don't want to be
associated.
in because they already are. What do you think this means? Or
Well,
tell us from your perspective what you think it means.
having read and watched and listened and gone to the webinars that have demonstrated the research that says now that minor attraction is in the womb, it's a gestational thing that occurs in the womb, and depending on the hormones and the gestation will depend on a spectrum of things in that, including sexuality. And minor attraction is part of that grouping. And there's two people that have done a lot of research on that, Dr. Cantor and Dr. Letourneau, and Dr. Cantor showed that there was more white matter in people with minor attraction. There was more left-handedness with people in minor attraction, which shows that it's a gestational thing. And Dr. Letourneau, and he also saw that it was a lower IQ. And I think it was Dr. Letourneau that saw a distinct peak between, or correlation, I don't know what the right word is for it, but research showing that there's an increased population of people with autism in the minor attracted community. So there's a whole load of things going on to create a whole variance of different experience in being self, as well as their sexuality towards other.
Yeah, I mean, and from what we know and what we've heard and what we're going to experience today, I think the general idea from the LGBT community, and I'm not obviously saying the full set of acronyms here as far as this community is concerned, but you know, they don't want to be associated with the MAPS community. I mean,
No, they're
they're
not campaigning to be part of it. It's not coming from them. It's coming from research. So it's a research empathy to try and create some kind of difference in meeting, supporting, and reducing offences, but also meeting and supporting them living with it in a well form. So all of it is to do with research. It's not to do with campaigns on the internet that we want to be part of the LGBT. There's none of that happening. It's other people projecting that upon them as if that's their thing, but that's not what's going on. But I think that gradually, as the no-map community found their legs and their support systems and their pride in what they were achieving, with their principles and their values. And that sort of pride work would really offend lots of people, which is maybe understandable to some people who have no education whatsoever. But in a community where you're actively investing in making real difference for people, either living with minor attraction and living with it better, or for people that are at risk of offending and then don't because they have the right support network. So all of these things are in so much a grey area, and society finds it very hard to digest prevention empathy. And I get that a lot of people can't digest that, but what they have to do is get to the point where they won't get in the way of it, even if they find it revolting or a disgust reflex, or that they just can't take it whatsoever. Okay, but don't get in the way of that happening, because this is professionals creating these answers, and these answers are going to make difference to the victimization of children. And I don't know why anyone would get in the way of that, surely.
Yeah, I mean, what we're going to take a look at today, I mean, generally is a response to this. I'm going to bring up a video. This is from a woman who goes by the name Bahaman, this Bahaman Gyal. And I haven't watched this video in its entirety. I just took a few seconds look at it. The video name is Pedophiles Rebranding LGBT Let Us In, Minor Attracted Persons. So let's take a look at what she has to say. I think from looking at her other content, it looks like she has some very strong opinions. She has some other videos that she's a fairly decent sized creator, but yeah, let's give her a voice here and respond accordingly.
Yeah, I just killed 5 people, but don't call me a murderer. Call me a life taker. I just sexually assaulted 2 women, but don't you call me a rapist. Call me a body violator. Yeah, I just fantasized about having sex with a kid and I pleasured myself while doing so, but don't call me a pedophile. That's such an ugly word. Call me a minor attracted person, or MAPS, if you're nasty. Y'all ready? Y'all good? Let's talk. Here's a warning. You will hear about pedophilia, sexual abuse, and other subject matters that may be uncomfortable and unsettling for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome back. So today I'm going to be discussing a taboo topic surrounding one group's attempt to rebrand pedophilia. They want it to be something a little bit more tolerable, palatable, a little bit less offensive, and they want to be referred to as minor attracted persons. This is certainly a taboo.
And we already kind of really touched on this, but I mean, this is not really driven by the MAP community. I mean, they have kind of taken this, but MAP really is more of a scientific term.
Yeah, it's more of a professional's term to describe the chronophilias that are sort of in the spectrum from nepiophilia to gerontophilia, and there's a whole load in between: pedophilia, hebephilia, mesophilia, and they are all just words that describe different age brackets or body types, or age of person that someone finds attractive or attracted to. So it's not the community, and she's talking they as if she, like, the community have told them. They've seen some community out there, campaigning to be called MAPS and have their brand rebranding, which is just a ridiculous thing to project upon what is actually a professional terminology and researched data and meta study at this point. They've done a lot of research that they compare with other research that shows that it's found repetitively, from USA, UK, and in Australia, the answers they're getting regarding minor attraction. So this woman is sort of talking as if they have made all of these things, and they haven't. They have just sort of tuned into it because someone with a minor attraction or some other conditions like paedophilic obsessive compulsive disorder or autopedophilia or autohebephilia, dysphoria with transitioning, You know, there's a whole load of things that can go on for people that they could sort of conflate with minor attraction, and all of that doesn't get any education anywhere. So there's a lot of people in a lot of communities that are being left without any support, education, understanding of what are quite standard conditions for, say, with autopedophilia, standard conditions for autism with age sliding, with trauma conditions like BPD and dissociative identity disorder, and with you know, the transgender community, with autohebophilia, where there's a reaffirmation to being a teenager again, no matter what age they're transitioning, and actually doing it the more authentic way that they missed out on the first time. So there's a lot of different things that could be going on where people are getting no support whatsoever or dialogue, and you know, those people are reaching out to or tuning into research and different scientists and doctors that are, you know, platforming those things and rightly getting some kind of, you know, support network or community feel of being somewhere that isn't getting judged on them. They're just being treated like innocent people that they are. And if it's recidivism, then even that is a really good thing. So, you know, even if someone has offended, it's incredibly unusual for them to reoffend in any way, shape or form, especially sexually. But, you know, it is a very honourable thing to work in recidivism so that people get support to not ever offend again.
Mm-hmm.
Subject, and one that leads to a lot of spirited debates online and in person, and rightly so, because quite frankly it's quite scary. But here's $1 million question. Was it unexpected? I and so many others knew and warned that this would be the next group on deck seeking acceptance from the collective. I knew this day would come. I know a lot of you who are watching knew this too. I think it's important to start this conversation out making a clear distinction between a pedophile and a child molester. A lot of times you'll find that people use these two terms interchangeably, and they are two totally different things. A pedophile can have recurrent...
Wow.
I'm glad. That's great. That's really great.
Yeah, I mean, this is not something, when we hear somebody making commentary on this kind of issue, we don't usually find that it's very balanced like this.
No, this is great.
Alex bleeping Jones, this is a Defend Kids channel. It absolutely is, Alex. This is a comment on YouTube right now.
Hey, Alex. You know, just talk to us, tell us how you're feeling, and we can have dialogue about it.
Yeah,
but really, what we have to remind ourselves is that reducing child abuse and preventing child abuse comes from prevention empathy. So that we must try and digest.
Yeah, I think most people come at this from the perspective of like, and we've talked about this many times before, that the main opinion that people have as far as quote unquote protecting children is let the law do it or put them 6 feet under.
And that's after the fact, you know.
Yeah, in that respect, an offense has already occurred.
Yeah.
So,
and that's not looking after the main cohort of people that are doing the offending at this point, which is teenagers and children. And we have to actually try and separate our hatred, because there's so much grey area in this issue that people aren't understanding. When children are getting access to pornography and serious dialogues and adult themes very, very early on, and things are getting normalized, that they are becoming teenagers in puberty that are finding it very difficult to navigate, and you know, actually are doing things in their sort of era of teenager, being brought up online, what feels like normal things for their pubic pubescent peers, amongst peers, but we're also sort of stopping the dialogue where any of these people can come forward and have some support, because they're even in conflict of these things. They don't even know that they actually are paedophilic. They're just in conflict of something, and this whole issue is so unspoken and so hated upon that no one can bring it up with anyone, not their parents, not their teachers, doctors, anything. It just feels like such a stigmatized issue that people cannot feel safe in reaching out for support.
Well, let's stick to what it is that we do here at Defend, which is trying to attack this issue, and which is, prevention of harms online for all people. Mm-hmm. And let's focus on what our programming actually is. And our programming is not aimed at children or adolescents. Our programming is strictly for adults who consider themselves to be MAPS. And that's just one of many different types of programming that we have. We're trying to attack this from the technology perspective in building our own social media platform. We are focused on education, so teaching people about where they're at risk online, including parents and children. But we knew that there was a gap. We knew that this is something that is underserved in society as far as supporting people that consider themselves to be MAPS, that generally could be in this ballpark of potential offenders. This is somebody that, if they are in the MAPS community, they get shunned. They get this pressure. They get this shit put on them to bury this and to hide it, because society doesn't want to deal with this. And that's fine. But that can create the most ideal circumstances for risk to go up. Mm-hmm. But getting back to this Bahamian Gyal, I really applaud her for starting off this conversation like this in the first minute. And let's see where she goes.
Intense, sexually arousing fantasies about children, but that doesn't make them child molesters. What sets the two groups apart is the fact that one has fantasies, the other, sexual molesters, acts on them. So let's talk about this MAPS, which a lot of people are rejecting. A lot of people are not interested in calling these people, these pedophiles, MAPS at all. You have some psychiatrists, some psychologists, some anti-sex abuse organizations that are beginning to, and even those in academia are beginning to include this terminology in their literature. Not sure if you all remember, but in 2021, Dr. Alan Walker, who is an author and was an assistant professor at Old Dominion University at the time, used the term during an interview with a child protection organization. Well, that clip went viral on TikTok and all hell broke loose. So Walker, who has done extensive research in this area, believes that pedophilia is hardwired in individuals. It's an unchosen thing, that they don't choose to be sexually attracted to children. It's just in them. It's innate. And prefers the term minor attracted person because, you ready?
And if we talk to the Alex bleeping Joneses of the world, I think most people will agree that is something that is not debated. Like, who would ever choose this?
Yeah, right. Nobody.
And
she's saying it in a way that says we don't want to give that because that humanizes them. But she's making the distinction between someone who has this and hasn't offended, so that there isn't. Oh, sorry, an alarm's going off. 1 second. There is shit. Now I can't remember what I was saying. What was it? So, no, it's gone. Sorry.
So let's continue then.
For this, it carries less stigma. Now, I don't know about y'all. I don't know about y'all. Y'all could tell me how y'all feel down below in the comments section, right? But I don't know that we need to be destigmatizing this thing. Not when we're talking about innocent children. By the way, Walker is the author of the book A Long Dark Shadow, Minor Attracted People and Their Pursuit of Dignity. Okay. Now, I have to say I haven't read the book yet, but I absolutely plan.
That little
Yeah. It's the dehumanization that I find difficult, because she is distinguishing that there are innocent people, and that research, and she's talking about it in terms of professionals and research and studies and academics. So she knows that this isn't some group of pedophiles on the internet saying we want to be this, that, and the other. She understands that this is academic, and it's reaching an issue that is desperately needing reaching, but she doesn't want to humanize the people in that. And before there is ever a sex offender, which she can conflate, she can separate, then she has to hold that there is a whole load of area that can hold prevention, that can go before the stigma. And if we don't take away the stigma, then how can those people ever reach out for help in their family, let alone professionally outside of their family or self, because it is so stigmatized. And I know our charity, we're working together on Defend, don't meet children and pubescent teenagers in this, but I try to bring them in because it's the first point of empathy that people can really shoehorn their own self-growth through, that they could think, wait there, if they're born this way and they find out when they're a teenager, and well, we're telling you that it's super stigmatized and we want it that way, then where is the support, the prevention, the ability to create less victims or minimize the victimization of someone? So this sort of this reticence to make them human is really unhelpful.
Yeah, but Faye, you have to look at it from our perspective, the general public.
Yeah.
We see that we the general public, our perception of who a quote unquote pedophile is, it's a dirty old man. That's who our perception is, Faye. Come on. Get with times.
The reality is that as I keep going on, it's the biggest cohort is children now. B, the second biggest cohort of convicted child adult sex offenders is heterosexual men, and that's all ages and professions and IQs. There is no particular religious background or culture or race that has a bigger or lesser degree of sexual offending in their communities. So it's a sort of widely spread human thing for people who are stressed to somehow portal that stress out on a child when actually they aren't sexually attracted to them at all. That's 70% of convicted adult sex offenders against children are heterosexual men, not being able to deal with something else, toxic masculinity, not being able to discuss about what's going on in their lives that they're struggling with. And so instead of going out and having a fight or stealing or brawling or drinking or having risky sex or whatever, they're inside attacking a child because they're available to them. And it's just, if we cannot see that is wholly preventable and put the empathy in that this isn't dirty old men, this is dads and granddads and stepdads and uncles and family friends and cousins and brothers and sisters. This is just ordinary people, ordinary folks of all kinds. There is no particular set of people that are more likely to than any other. You know, and women are actually increasing on it as well. I mean, they're not nowhere near in comparison, but there is increasing, you know, interaction with women, usually with men. Not very rare that it would be a woman on their own. But yeah, you know, all of that is going on, and we haven't got the right laws in place yet to even tackle any of it really, but we're out here trying to put out the education that says, look, there are places where we can create difference, and please can you just try and digest that, and if you can't digest that, just stay out of it then. Just don't go in there. Just realize you have a trigger. That's okay, and we totally get it. It's a really difficult subject. Most people won't be able to digest it, and they will have a knee-jerk reaction, which is a disgust reflex, you know, a real anger towards child sex offending, and it's a really awful thing, a heinous crime. It's totally understandable, but it's not understandable to use that as a block to allow for prevention. Those people that do qualify in that way, and those people that do need that space, because all children deserve that.
MAPS deserve support, just like any other segment of society. Alex Bleeping Jones says prevention, empathy, LMAO. Alex, if you're interested in coming on the Zoom call with us right now, let us know in the comment section. We would love to have you on and actually hear your perspective. And that goes for anybody. Reach out to us by email on our website, HelpUsDefend.com. If you want to, you know, put these arguments out there as to why it is that your beliefs are right, we would love to hear and have this kind of civilized discussion about this. But if you don't want to have a civilized discussion, you're not open to changing your mind, you're triggered by this kind of thing, that's fine. Turn it away. And you know, our programming for MAPS is directed at MAPS and is trying to support them in a way that gives them the opportunity to feel human. And that's what we don't see a lot of in society.
It's vital for them staying functioning. You know, pedophilia isn't a disorder. Pedophilic disorder is the disorder. People live with pedophilia in innocence and complete functionality for their whole lives. There's lots of great people who are sexually attracted to children and never in any way offend. So it really isn't usual for people to just go out there offending on people.
Too. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, I'm so disgusted by the subject matter, I will not read it. Not me. When I'm disgusted by something, I just want to know what it's all about. I don't like summations from other people. I like to read books myself to see what's contained inside, because I feel like sometimes things get lost in translation. Sometimes things get lost in sound bites. So let you hear the clip that went viral 2 years ago. And this is what caused such a major backlash. So just take a listen.
I use the term minor attracted person, or MAP, in the title and throughout the book for multiple reasons. First of all, because I think it's important to use terminology for groups that members of that group want others to use for them. And MAP advocacy groups like Before You Act have advocated for use of the term MAP. They've advocated for it primarily because it's less stigmatizing than other terms like pedophile.
So as you can see, it was a very, very short clip. I didn't get the full interview. I've been looking for the full interview. If anybody knows where I can find it, please let me know. But I have read other comments that were published online. And one of the things that Walker said is that child abuse is, quote, never, ever okay, but that having sexual urges toward children isn't necessarily wrong as long as those carnal desires aren't acted upon. Meanwhile, back on Earth. So let's do a quick poll in the comment section. Let's just do a quick poll, and I'm so serious. Which of you is going to take the chance to leave your kid, and it doesn't have to be your own child?
This is done.
That's getting into thought policing, you know. If she described a completely innocent person with a thought or urge disorder, or just thing inside them that's just living and functioning fine, into an action, which before she really separated. So now she's sort of trying to conflate them, that, you know, we want to stigmatize the thought of it. The absolute thought of it for us is disgusting. So you're not allowed to sit there and be okay with the fact that you have thoughts like these. And actually, it's really undermining of the conflict these people are living with, because they're not sat there happy, sexually attracted to children. They are in absolute dire conflict with themselves. A lot of people take their lives. A lot of people get into real troubles just as a human being, internally at themselves, because they cannot live with it well. Not in an external way, but in a self-punishing way. So it's not this, yay, hey, I'm this, and let's go out and make communities. It really isn't like that. These people are actually in turmoil.
Yeah. And I'm really getting the sense that she wants to have this balanced argument about this. But then she's wanting to, quote unquote, poll her audience, when we all know the audience is going to, 80-90% of them is going to say, this is how we deal with this problem. It's 6 feet under or in jail for life. And yeah, I mean, not impressed so far, but let's see where she's going.
It can be your nieces, your nephews, it can be your godchildren, just the little ones in your lives, okay? Any one of them, or your kids, whatever. Which one of you is going to take the chance to leave your child around someone who has not acted upon their urges, but just has those fantasies and possibly masturbates to the thought of a child? Which one of you? I don't know about you. I'd rather leave my kid around someone who doesn't even have those urges, who's not even expressed those urges, who I don't suspect has those urges. So let's take it away from children for a second. Let's take it away from pedophiles for a second. Let's switch the conversation really quickly to perhaps rapists, right? So I, as a woman, don't want to be in the same space as a man who has said, I've never raped anybody, but I do have sexual fantasies about raping women. I have sexual fantasies, and guess what? I also pleasure myself.
Because, and this is researched fact, the number one fantasy for women is coercive, CNC, consensual non-consent rape fetish. So that's women in general. And I watched this documentary, and it was all about the evolution of men and women through archaic man, and that's not consensual sex that was happening. And the reason why women have a equal arousal to everything from animals to people is because in their genetic evolution, the women that were moist during threat or rape had more likelihood of surviving it, not getting injured and then suffering with sepsis or whatever. So now the majority of people on the planet who are women in threat will have their vagina lubricate, just as a threat response. But B, women have a equal arousal to all things. If they see monkeys having sex, they'll be slightly aroused by it, as well as the number one fantasy for women is rape. And are we seeing any women rapists out there? Are we telling women who have fantasies about CNC that they're disgusting, we should hang them and put them? No, we're not. We're not. And we're not telling them not to have children, and we're not telling anyone that they can't raise them. We're just saying a real oxymoron that doesn't make sense of the actual facts, researched facts.
To the thought of raping women. Do you think I want to be in that person's space? Do I want to take the chance of being in that person's space? Now, you could very well say, well, Rogan, he has not raped anybody. He hasn't raped anybody. He has a fantasy about it, and he gets off on it. He hasn't raped anybody. But do I want to be the one to take the chance?
Because even with women who have survived rape, or men even, and they are a man and should be able to fight back, or are a woman who's, you know, gone to karate or whatever and got some skills, and they just freeze or flop in their threat response, and they're undermined as a victim. And especially if they had arousal for CNC and that whole conflict within their self, that did they deserve it because they have these thoughts, and are they less of a victim because they didn't fight back and their threat response was to freeze or flop? All of these real grey areas that this woman's being very black and white about make so many different vulnerable communities even more vulnerable, because the grey areas and the nuances and the nervous system and your whole body functioning, your brain, all of these different things, making synapses that connect these things to make them easier to live with, or to accommodate, or to, you know, grow beyond, or you know, heal, are being judged in this. And that's so much more than you think about rape, so you're a danger to everyone. It's just, you know, people think about murder, people do films about murder, people do games about rape and murder. All these people in prison, no, they're not being hunted down because they're disgusting, horrible creatures. They're millionaires usually because they've sold a game that everyone plays, you know.
Do I want to be in your space when perhaps there's an opportunity and then you go, oh yeah, I'm going to cross over from the fantasy to reality? Yes, pedophilia is the attraction and not the action, but I'm pretty damn sure that a lot of them went from just the attraction to the action. I don't want to take the risk, not with my kid. Anyway, so Walker lost several university jobs because of those comments. Let me say very quickly that I don't support that. I think we're going down a very dangerous and slippery slope when we do that, because what's the cutoff point here? What's the cutoff point? It's very easy to get into this mob mentality and strip someone.
It's
Sorry,
cancel culture. That it's
yeah.
cancel culture of the messenger. And this was a professional who was doing research, who was doing good research, and just got annihilated under public pressure of stigma bias, which is moronic, absolutely moronic. That the damage that has done to children being limited or saved from child abuse is unbelievable. Professionals are getting cancelled in their real life jobs because of the you know, the heroic specialization that they're going towards. And I don't understand, and I'm glad that she's saying that she doesn't agree with this, because it's not just unagreeable with, it's absolutely unconscionable that people are getting people's lives destroyed because they're trying to prevent child abuse or limit child abuse. It's moronic.
Their livelihood and say, oh, well, you know what, they got what they deserved. Yeah, they got what they deserved. But what happens when it's your turn? What happens when it's my turn? You know, stripping someone of their livelihood is a very serious thing, and it's not to be taken lightly. Of course, organizations have the right to do as they please, but I think it's just something that we need to be very, very cautious of. I think the world operates best when there are different voices and different perspectives. If you watch my last video, one of the reasons why we're in this state right now is because we don't have a, you know, we don't know how to dissent properly. I don't know if you all remember several years ago, because, you know, we're always talking about terminology and people watering down or trying to sanitize certain evil acts. But several years ago, the Catholic Church was under fire for some child abuse. I think that was well documented all over the world. But you had some Catholic bishops in the United States calling them boundary violations. We're going to call these boundary violations. Boundary violations? If my child were molested by a priest or a nun, boundary violations is not the terminology, it's not the term that would come to mind. Boundary violations sound like you know, you told the parent, listen, the kid is only going to be in Bible study for an hour. Well, you know, they'll be home in time for supper.
Because, like, language is very important. Language matters. And I've been campaigning for nearly a decade now for a language change around the media captured within a child's molestation or abuse, and that going from this terminology of it, calling it child pornography, and into the factual media that's being collected, which is child sexual abuse media. And her stating language matters. I agree, but she's sort of trying to make it that it's sanitizing something, but actually it's trying to be more specific. And when we don't conflate, which she did at the beginning, she made a big deal, and we're all really glad about it, that she didn't conflate thoughts with offending. And now there's this sort of language thing where we're going to sort of do that because we don't want to sanitize the thoughts from the actions, and the whole religious thing, the community. There's all sorts of different organizations and governmental things and big wide stuff that's going on with child sexual abuse. That's a totally different issue from people being able to work with prevention.
But Faye, come on, you're forgetting that she's a YouTuber with monetization, and she has 80,000 subscribers to cater to. So
Yeah.
I mean, she needs to kind of have this push and pull with her audience of, this is what I believe, this is what's right, this is what you believe, and this is how I'm going to cater to all of those. So we've got only a few minutes left. I mean, what are your, we've been hearing your general impressions here. I don't think she really got into she didn't really get into the meat and potatoes of the LGBT community. Perhaps that's in the latter half of the video, but this idea that there has been this push, I think that this is sort of a push from these kinds of creators to essentially speak on behalf of a whole community. And that might not necessarily be the case as far as like inclusivity. I've heard Dr. Cantor talk about adding M to the LGBTQ acronym.
Yeah.
But for not the reasons that most people think. I mean, generally, when you think about this community, do you think it's the right fit for MAPS, Faye?
What, being in the LGBTQIA plus? I think it is necessary that people understand that really is where it's at, and that is requires everyone to gradually digest that information, those facts, so that those teenagers can get support from their family and community and professionals, and B, those that are struggling with paedophilic disorder get the support they need to prevent things. But C, we get to the grey areas, all of these massive loads of grey areas that are all getting slumped under because we don't want to talk about it. And that's survivors not being able to talk about it because they think that they're going to turn into a child sex offender because they've been sexually attacked. And as with the rape thing and all of that conflict internally of what happened to me and what goes on because of that, what happened to me in my flashbacks or my intimacy or my night terrors. So it's all of that, living with it in the absolute darkness and void and vacuum, and in fact worse than that, it's vacuumed of any humanity and then imploded with a whole load of really entitled hatred that is allowed to just spread wide and far, and let's just kill them all just in case. And that is including victims as well, because, well, there's all sorts of grey areas here that we're not even holding before we can even hold this other thing. So I just want everyone to try and digest some of the facts, and if they really can't, that's okay. That is totally understandable, and I care about that. But That's yours to look after, not to put in front of someone else's chance to get prevention, or some other child's chance of being saved, or in fact prevented from being a victim whatsoever.
You know, I see this on her wall, and then I see the crucifix around her neck. And I wonder if we were to poll most of the people that have these kinds of harsh decisions or harsh opinions about MAPS, I wonder what religion has to do with this. And this is not a time for us to answer this, because we're gonna wrap up. We're almost out of time. But
well, I know the answer. There's a
well,
really great
let's save the answer. Let's save the answer till next time.
All right. Okay.
So let's tease that out. And if you want to comment about this in the comment section, we would love to hear from you. And I want to invite you to our website, HelpUsDefend.com. We've got a lot of different programming and different things that we're doing to do our part to protect children and vulnerable people online. What are you doing to do your part? You know, that's what we will ask. You know, we are volunteers. Our organization of 260 people from 19 or 20 different countries. We are all doing our part on different levels and different scales to push these issues forward, to protect children online, protect vulnerable people of all kinds online. What are you doing? And if you want to help, get on our website, send us an email, or volunteer, or even better, donate and help us push our programming forward. Big projects like our new social media platform that's coming forward. We just pushed into the App Store a 3D scanning app. So, if you want to help, go and share our stuff, go and help us defend. Thank you, Faye, for today. It was a great chat, and we'll see you next time, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.